What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now, listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I say, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So, come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to this episode of the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and boy, we have special guest, Nathanael Chawkin is back. This is part two. What's up, Nathanael?
Part two. We had to do it.
Part two, yeah.
Just this week, part two, yeah.
I know. So I think I'm going to chop up the episodes into a couple episodes. So if you're hearing this, you probably saw the last episode was Nathanael part one. So Nathanael's multi-time guest on the show. We decided to give ourselves enough time to actually like really let the show breathe like a fine wine. Just let it get some air and not be timed out after an hour, which is what happens on a lot of the shows. We met last week. We haven't seen each other in a while. You've had a lot of cool changes in your life. You're a new dad. How's it feeling, dude? How's that feel?
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, fatherhood.
You have
we had quite an ordeal through labor. It was not our birth vision. Mom ended up in the hospital for 9 days and in the NICU, and baby in the in the ICU, and baby in the NICU. So it's quite a trial, but it was a really heart-cracking open kind of experience. And the gods must be crazy, the blessing of life. What a miracle.
Yeah, that's a lot. Wow, I didn't know that. So you have a daughter, right?
Yeah, baby girl.
What's her name?
Gaia.
Gaia. What is that from?
So Gaia is the ancient Greek for the mother god. It's often Mother Earth is Gaia.
I didn't know that. All right, that's
she gave birth to the whole universe.
Wow. Okay.
Well, that's a lot. Thought that God was a mother giving birth.
The more I get attuned to my spiritual side, the more I believe that God probably is the mother.
Yeah. Well, as we spoke about last time, once you get into the direct experience, having a mystical experience, every culture has that at the core of its religion. Of course, it would be mother and father together that are the creative principle that give rise to creation.
Yeah, so it's, we talked a little bit last episode, probably more than a little bit about plant medicine, and what's interesting is they call ayahuasca grandma, and I heard that is it San Pedro's what they call have you heard this as grandfather? Did I get that right? Is that the right plant? Yeah. So San Pedro's grandfather, it's more of like a masculine cactus that you take. Supposedly you take it while you're like hiking, like you go outside during the day and you
on the fire.
Yeah. So, but it's what I was told is you take that plant medicine during the day. It's a daytime thing. It's like but it's a masculine, and it's like it has it's a different learning plant. But I think it's interesting to start to when you start thinking of like the yin and the yang, and like the world and life being about balance, right? Or about establishing balance. Dancing with the different feminine and masculine energies. And when I start to see like where there's friction, like in the past had you asked me, and maybe you have a thought on this. So guys, by the way, like I'm just going straight back into it. If you don't know enough about Nathanael, go listen to part one and you'll get more of the intro, or even listen to our past shows. But Nathanael's like just he's a coach and a sage and a leader in the world of leadership. Works with a lot of CEOs, entrepreneurs, game changers out there. Really, as like when I think of you, by the way, I think of you. There's like 3 or 4 parts of me that kind of are embrace Nathanael. So we met number one at as I mentioned on the last episode, we met for the first time at Esalen at a Future Masculinity conference, which he was leading. And then my favorite part of that story of all time is when we wrestled in the yurt.
Yes, sir.
I love that. Like that's like did I ever tell you that right when you said we were going to do that, the thought that went through my head?
Say what it was. I forget.
I don't know if I've told you this. So, listeners, whether you're aware of it or not, I got into wrestling when I was 14 years old, and I got cut from my soccer team in high school. My freshman soccer, I was a soccer player from the age 8 to like 14, but I was a bigger kid. I wasn't fast enough, so I got cut, and I was kind of happy I got cut because I had this calling to go into wrestling, and I was a really bad wrestler until I wasn't. And wrestling is one of those sports where you're kind of bad till you're not, if you make it.
Tough sport.
And so I got into wrestling, and I wrestled all through high school and into college. I was Division I wrestler in college, and I ended up going from like the worst guy on my wrestling team to literally the MVP of my high school wrestling team. And I was like one of the top wrestlers in the state of California when I was a senior in high school. So what I always tell people who know me in business is wrestling was my business. Like until I got into business, like I was obsessed with it. Like I would eat, drink, sleep, wake up, go work out, go wrestle, go from one wrestling practice to the next, go to the gym. Like I was obsessed with wrestling. And so that's a nice precursor for what happened in Esalen in 2019, which was 23 years after I graduated high school. And 22 years after I had last wrestled competitively. And so we're getting ready to start our Saturday learning session, and Nathaniel's leading it, and he tells a quick story about how Socrates would have their students physically wrestle before they learned, right?
Yeah, I just like to say they would wrestle physically before he wrestled with them philosophically, and they would do it in the same place, under the porticos around the side that have the dialogues in the shade, and the center training ground was Palestra, which is the name of my leadership consultancy.
So he announces we're going to do this. Now I'm in this room with, I don't know, there was about 30 of us or so.
Yeah.
7 of which, excluding me, are my forum mates. And I know that none of them know how to wrestle.
Surprise.
And as I look around the room, first of all, Nathaniel will appreciate this, and any wrestler or martial artist will appreciate this. The minute you know you're going to do a certain type of martial art, you can tell who knows the martial art by how they stand.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a stance for every martial art has a different type of stance, depending on how you start depending on what which one it is and how you start the match. And wrestling
depending on if you're a grappler or a striker, you kind of have opposite stances. Yeah,
totally. So by how someone stands is how you know how they fight. And wrestlers there's a very specific way you stand when you wrestle. In fact, when you learn how to wrestle, the first thing you learn is stance. Is how to get in the stance. And you don't realize how important it is, because stance is how you are. It's funny. It's probably a great analogy for life. Your stance projects your offense and your defense, right?
Well, the Latin word for attitude, attitudine, means posture.
Oh, which makes total sense.
So it's the body-mind connection again. Yeah, and we like to say how you show up on the mat is a metaphor for how you show up off the mat in life. And that's what Socrates was learning, which Bruce Lee called self-knowledge. Ultimately, all types of knowledge mean self-knowledge. You learn more about someone in those few seconds of grappling. Like on first point of contact, you learn more about their personality than you can on any kind of assessment.
It's really interesting because it is true. Like even people that don't know how to wrestle, you can tell by their perspective on approach.
Yeah.
Because a lot, and what I found, especially in, it's a male dominated sport, so it's a lot of men, right, or young men. But like sometimes we'd have football players come in, we would recruit them to start wrestling, and they were usually the best football players, and they didn't know how to wrestle, but they were super aggressive, right? Because these guys had learned, if you want to win, you got to be aggressive, right? And they would come out of the gate super aggressive, and they would try to use way too much of their energy and strength. But that was how because they didn't know what they're doing, they figured they'd at least be aggressive.
Well, you have that default style. Like I joke, some people like to push people over, and other people are the pushover, and then other people avoid the tension completely.
Right.
But the interesting thing is, like, if I push into you and you push me back, it does create tension. But then you can kind of open the trap door and they fall through it. So there's this redirecting energy skill that comes online when you're able to do both. You can be receptive, but you can also be very assertive. And of course, that's what we call leadership presence. You have the calm, confident energy, as the dog whisperer would say. So that these physical arts, like dog whispering, like martial arts, they all have this quality of like, I know what it means to be embodied. I can move in any direction. I can turn it on or I can dial it back. I'm flexible, I'm versatile, or flex flow, we call it. And that's a sign of a higher stage of leadership development.
It's such a beautiful metaphor for leadership, because like as you were describing it, once you get to that point also, and I think there's a point in which you're there, when you're like super comfortable, like engaging, right? Like there's no fear, there's no apprehension. You're like, you actually are like kind of looking forward to it. And and there's like a giddy, like you're like, what are they going to do? And it's a game of chess, really, because you're like, what's their move going to be? And you're kind of just like, and you're casually, and then there's masters that the minute you engage, you're like, oh shit.
Exactly. It is kinetic chess, and even if you're one move ahead, it starts being playful. There's aliveness because, like in striking, you show them your face, and it's like, here, it's bait. And then as soon as they strike, you're out of the way, and then counter striking. So it's all a game of timing, and the aliveness is what makes it a play. And it's a serious play, but all the more for wrestling too. Like it's a really, really tough sport. I think any solo sport, as solo sports go, it's got to be one of the hardest ones by itself, which is why they make such great mixed martial artists.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. It's fascinating. And what was interesting was like I said, I wasn't very good at it until I figured. It took me a long time to figure out how to be good at it. I was not great. But once I got to the point where I was, better than most people, where I won much more than I lost, it became much more fun. And I always tell people it's a sport that gets really fun when you're good, but most people never get good. So it's not. And
there's stats on even just jiu-jitsu or martial arts in general. Like some majority percentage of people are under the age of 13 for things like taekwondo and karate. And as jiu-jitsu got more popular, I think those numbers changed a little bit since kind of the 90s and early 2000s. But then you have, 80% of people quit within the first 3 months.
Oh yeah. Because it's not like that fun. It's not fun when you're bad.
It's you get beat. Not in the beginning.
Shit beat out of you. You get beat up.
Well, it's a good metaphor for a couple of things. One of which is in our integral approach to leadership development. It's based on this metaphor of cross training. So whether we're working with leaders or we're working with coaches, like the simplest way to get to the next level as a leader or in your efficacy as a coach is to cross train. And that, again, is the Bruce Lee principle of you absorb what's useful, you discard what's useless, and you add what is essentially your own, but you do it such that you become more versatile. So for example, if I can coach really well in a one-on-one context, but those conversations are kind of happening in a vacuum, the moment I go to do team coaching, now there's tension. Now there's breakdowns on committed action. How do I handle the tension between even just 2 people, let alone a room of 8 people on a team?
Yeah.
So suddenly the skill of what we're calling, verbal judo, basically, how do you actually have people take perspective and mirror what they hear and then trade roles in that so that you can actually have those breakdowns lead to breakthroughs? And that also it's incumbent upon the CEO to be the first one to actually empower people to have that feedback flow up, to sense and respond to the tension that's in the room. But if you can coach those kind of conversations, like your value just went up as a coach. And the other thing that's interesting about that, because people get so triggered in those conversations, is the kind of business coaching toolkit isn't enough. It's like you actually have to be able to go into the things that trigger people and where those triggers come from, which is more like a self-inquiry or parts work kind of approach, or at least understanding the drama triangle, if not some deeper kind of origin story work on why your ego personality is the way it is, and why do certain things trigger some people, but they make other people, laugh or cry or whatever it is. So that deep kind of self-understanding of your hardwiring so that you can start to evolve and change and grow. That's a whole other toolkit. So now we have 3, and what about just strategic planning and how to run a company? So there are many toolkits, but those really are the core 4 that we're working with. And we really believe too, that if you train coaches developmentally in that way through cross training, it's the simplest way to get yourself to the next level and provide a different kind of value for your clients, because the stats on the coaching industry by itself, if you've looked at that, it's like it's grown 5x year over year just since COVID, I think. Like everybody's a coach. So for leaders who are like, yeah, I want a coach, but how do I find one? Oftentimes the best bet is like in YPO and EO, people are referring people that they already know, so they've been vetted. But there are a lot of coaching programs out there, and you don't know who's capable of what. So it's a pretty kind of cottage industry, as I've heard you say in the past.
Yeah, and even the different layers of what you just went over of who can coach in all those areas is usually the people are going to lean into one of those areas or two of those areas, not all those different parts, right?
And you can have a primary, secondary, maybe. It's hard to be good at all of them. Exactly.
Yeah, like when I advise, it's like it's light on the leadership and heavy on like the strategy, because I'm like, well, they didn't bring me in for leadership development. They can bring in, there's way better people at leadership development than I am, but I'll help them scale their company and tell them who sucks.
Yeah. Right.
Like, and that part, that's, and what's interesting is what I find fascinating is people they'll pay for that. And then the stuff that they seem like hesitant to pay for, like, is the soft stuff. That is actually where you get all the juice. It's like fucking amazing. Like, if I get your team to show up and be aligned and to do great work and be a good team together, and to have you as a leader level up to be, because as goes the leadership goes the organization, as you and I both know, like that's how you're going to squeeze like 2x out of 1, because you get synergistic output. But I always find like this is where I think coaching is interesting, because I do think there's a level of coaching in which people will pay because there's so much cachet around that specific coach where people pay like crazy amounts. And then there's the rest, which is kind of this like fight to prove value. And what I found is like there's 3 things that I think are easy sells, and everything else is like not as easy to sell. And if you're selling these 3 things, like probably can make a pretty good living. If I'm selling sex, like if I'm selling sex, like either you get more or like enjoy or like seen as a sexy person or whatever. If selling sex, that's looks, that's all, fitness, all that stuff. So sell sex. I sell money. Like, how can I get you more money? Right. So if you give me $1, I can show you how to get 10 back. Like, people will pay for that for obvious reasons. And then if I could show you how to get more time, right? Because time is
power, because then you'd have the sex, money, power trifecta.
Yeah, no, it's time. People will pay if I can show you how to get more time. Like, really, how to get more time? Like, where like this is why people like passive income. Passive income is a combination of 2 of those: more money, more time, right? But I always found I've watched people charge a lot for those 3 things and get it fairly easily. Everything else seems like a harder sell, right? It's just because I got to educate the audience. Like, even a lot of the stuff you're talking about, like, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And then I'll have these conversations with people, and they're like, they don't get it, and like
it's hard to draw the dotted line between the intangible inner work that you do and the breakthrough that happens in the team, and does that cascade into some kind of significant business outcome. And you have to tell these stories or make these case studies about, oh yeah, leadership development the leader was at a certain level and had a kind of persona, as many entrepreneurs do, of rescuing and having their cape on, playing Superman, playing the firefighter. And what goes along with that is a little bit of people pleasing, this kind of archetype. And so the people who start their companies often bring their friends, and their friends are seldom the people that will, never mind scale the company with them, but grow it even to a point where they could have an exit. So the individual leader being willing to do the work of seeing how they show up in the drama triangle, in the rescuer position, to have a breakthrough internally around that, and to start to shift out into self and to be able to see that part of them instead of looking through it, you're looking at it, like you take glasses off. And then the choices, with awareness comes choice, right? With that choice comes, oh my gosh, how many places am I tolerating behavior that doesn't align with our values? Because you get the culture you deserve. And how do I hold tension with my friends? And wow, this is a real setup on me that I would hire people who are my friends who who I don't want to disappoint. But to start to raise the standards and set the boundaries and have clear communication on the team and real standards, like the work you do around your core values, requires being kind of a guardian or sentinel of what those values are, and being able to, it's like it's standing at the door, what gets in and what needs to be let out. To have that kind of a disruption creates a kind of creative vacuum. Once, there's more to the story, but once I decide not to coach certain people because I can see they're not aligned, the tension goes back on the CEO to make the move, and it's their choice. And so they decide to start disrupting the team. And it creates a creative vacuum where high-level talent comes in because it's attractive. People from Tesla and people from Volkswagen, Mercedes, and this kind of a thing. And so now you have the right team in place. How are you going to grow now? And how much more high-performing are they now? So yeah, what's the business result of that? It becomes self-evident when you're in that kind of a transformation.
I think I was having this conversation over the weekend. There's a woman who I actually referred to your former, your alumni. What would you consider yourself at Stegan? You're an alumni. You're a teacher there. So
yeah, I was an executive coach and facilitator there.
Are you a Stegan emeritus?
Yeah, well,
coach emeritus.
Yeah. All right.
So there's a woman
part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, you're part of the Stegan family. So you're a former coach at Stegan. We talk about Stegan a lot. Rand's obviously been on the show a few times. And funny enough is I scheduled David Emerald to be on the show. And he was supposed to do the show this fall, and he just passed away.
He just passed away a few weeks ago.
I was bummed, man. I scheduled him like 2 months ago.
Bless his heart. Beautiful man.
Yeah. So anyone, the Power of TED, the author of that book, is a great thought leader. But so this woman, friend of mine, Kiki Federico, she and I were talking about this perspective around. It's funny. I love your perspective on this, because I said, what's funny is there are two types of people who I can work with. There's people who, there's two types of, I think, perspectives in business. And I think like when we start talking about spiral dynamics, you have this like toxic blue, red, green, yellow, and then there's yellow, which is integral, right? And then there's like the shadow side of these different, like these mindsets.
Worldviews,
Yeah, worldviews. And then you have like the non-shadow, the light side of it. And what I was telling her about is this, what I found is because of the prevalence, and I think that Gen Z and the millennials are pushing for this because they're more they want to see the world change. There's a value around like working collectively to create a better outcome that didn't, I don't think necessarily was part of the zeitgeist prior to that as much. So what I'm finding is that it is now part of the corporate vernacular to use the buzzwords we are using, but to not authentically live them.
Oh yeah, of course.
And so, whereas before, when I would talk like this, because I've been fanatic. Like, here's my perspective on this. I'm a performance fanatic. I love high performance. Like, that's it. Like, I love high performance. I like inspiring people to get there. I think being on a team where people are inspired to win is really fun. Like, that makes me feel alive. It makes me feel like I'm a part of something greater than myself, and I get inspired by that. That said, when you want that and you don't have that, you start looking and searching for the ways, the methods, the ways, the outcomes, the learnings you need to like absorb and become good at in order to create that outcome.
Yeah.
I happen to learn, like, if I want an inspired team that shows up and I want the best people to come and be a part of my company who are inspiring themselves to inspire great work from the team, like, I need to care about certain things: leadership development, building rhythms and cadences around strategy, feedback loops so people can get feedback so they can perform. Which, by the way, as I'm describing this, I'm just describing every top athlete in the world, how they perform. Yeah. Right.
They have more coaches, the better they get, not less.
Yeah, more coaches. They have tons of feedback loops. They are constantly measuring every inch of their business. They have a strategy on how they're going to win. They make sure their teammates are leveling up next to them. They are good leaders so they can get more out of themselves and their team. Like, I'm just describing like every great athlete in the world. And then I'm taking those and there's a culture of high performance and winning, right? Mm-hmm. And they have a great work ethic to back it all up. Right. And they're investing in all these things to create an outsized outcome that the world happens to monetize in a way that's outsized in their favor if they're at the highest level. Like, it makes sense for LeBron James to spend probably tens of millions of dollars on all this stuff because he's making billions, right? So it's a good investment. Like, there's a great outcome there. If I'm a D1 athlete, it makes sense to invest even hundreds of thousands of dollars because I could get a NBA contract, right? That could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars for the right people. So those types of, I think people can like relate to that and be like, yeah, of course you're going to do that, Darius. Like, of course I'm going to hire the top coach for my 12-year-old son who's like a good baseball player. I think, like, statistically speaking, it's a terrible investment, but there's an emotional attachment to that, wanting their kid to be a hero in a sport that they're attached to. In business, some people get this and some people don't. But what the point I was trying to make is, because there's a language of what high-performing organizations look like now, I find that many of the autocratic, authoritarian leaders, which is a lot of people, or strategic thinkers who are best idea wins type people, they are realizing that in order to motivate people, they have to use these buzzwords. But when push comes to shove, they don't really want to do the work.
Yeah, it's greenwashing.
It's greenwashing. I think we talked about this last time. And so we were talking about it over the weekend with my friend Kiki, she's trying to become a staking coach right now. I actually think did I introduce you to her? I thought I did over text.
I can't recall right now.
And anyhow, and what I said was, I'm finding my tolerance for having to convince people that this stuff works is dwindling by the second. Like, I don't feel like the need to convince anyone anymore. Like, I'm like, don't get it. I don't give a shit. Like, if you don't get it, that's you're going to, like, let's put it this way. If I have to compete against you, I hope you don't get it.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be on my team, there's only one way we're going to do it. What are you seeing in the world of coaching? Are you seeing like more people actually getting it? Or are you seeing that, like, I mean, when we see like, the leaders that be, I don't want to name names right now, but there's a lot of autocratic leadership that's like coming up in the world and getting a lot of like FaceTime and getting an outsized, time in front of the microphone. Like, we have a rise in autocratic leadership, yet we both know that if you want to create outsized outcomes in your business, it's probably not by doing that. What are you noticing?
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly talk about the rise of authoritarian leadership in the world, and that's why all of this really matters right now. And there's other episodes where I've talked about feedback flowing up. I mentioned it today, but I do want to make a U-turn back to plant medicine. And I'll tell you why. Because people throw around the word exponential. There's a great book, Exponential Organizations. But it's important that we define what that means, because an actual exponential curve where it's multiples of multiples isn't actually what happens. But there are things in the plant medicine world where people who say they've reported a complete mystical experience, which means a metaphysical experience. It's not adjusting neurotransmitter levels in your brain like an SSRI, antidepressant. You experience something metaphysical, and then downstream from that, smoking cessation, 80% success rate in 3 moderate doses of psilocybin with cognitive behavioral therapy. People say things anecdotally like, that one journey of 5 hours was worth 5 years of therapy. That's an exponential kind of impact. And, but what becomes important about these experiences, you talk about people who are high performers, they are seeking out these experiences. So you have to be careful, because people go to the medicine, they start going to the plant medicine as a practice instead of having this practice in their life and then going to the medicine. It can be a kind of accelerator, but you are only going to get so much out of it if you're integrating that experience. So to just share a little bit about what we do at Awakening Leadership, we have this Awakening Leadership program, which is designed to be a 3-month experience. So it's not spiritual tourism. And that number 2, integration is a practice. So you're just like we talked about wrestling. Like, you're going for the 10,000 hours with or without the boosters like plant medicine. And then third thing is, who's your tribe? Community of practice. There's all kinds of data around the social impact of just having a gym buddy. Never mind the habits you do by yourself, but just having one person who is waiting for you. Sleep in your gym shorts, but have the gym buddy who's there waiting for you. And we know from Forum as well, or the phenomenon of men's work, having a circle of men that you meet with that's therapeutic. but also could be challenging you to up-level your performance in your professional life as well. So that's the approach that we're taking. And there's a whole thing that I've just recently, in the last month, AI is coming. So we have these ancient technologies like plant medicine that can catalyze otherworldly experiences, expanded states of consciousness, mystical experiences, at the same time as AI is now disrupting everything. And I was not a first follower on AI. I logged into it one day and I asked it to put something together, and I'm like, who cares? It's writing me an 8th grade essay. Well, in the meantime, GPT 4.0 came out, and I kind of was still sleeping. And this is a whole thing that I'm very excited about, so it's worth talking about. Now, in the Awakening Leadership Program, for example, access to a skilled coach or facilitator is expensive. But what I'm starting to be able to do, first step, was be coached by it. So I can coach it to coach me.
Yeah.
And not only that, guess what? Now I can say, hey, ChatGPT, can you create a prompt for my clients to use that takes them through what I just had you do with me? So now there's some percentage, and it's shocking because of how people say it's sycophantic and it'll suck up to you and make you a narcissist. Yeah, it could. It takes one sentence to tell it to, like, hey, if you think I'm wrong, just tell me what you see. And then that gets programmed in. But the upside of that is a kind of being seen and acknowledged, a kind of vulnerability. I bet people wouldn't admit it, but they feel their GPT knows them better than most people. So you combine that with the actual toolkit that I have, and it's now able to, there's an on-demand nature to this. So when you talk about 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, the hardest thing for me as a coach is, will you as a client do practices in between sessions?
Right.
Will you follow through on the actions that you committed to? Because I need my clients to get that many more reps between sessions.
Right.
Otherwise, they're a consumer of coaching and they're dependent on me showing up to the coaching sessions, when my goal for them is to coach themselves, which means get into some kind of a daily routine and practice with this, which is what the Awakening Leadership Program is designed to do. It gets them into a daily routine, and now they can have a relationship with their GPT coach that is walking them through this curriculum. And here's the kind of exclamation point on all of this. Just to be coached for more hours between sessions in a way that's very personalized. It's on demand. They can do it whenever they want. So the moment that they're stuck or the moment that they're triggered, they can bring it out. So whenever they want, as much as they want, and the follow through on committed action, because it can track and have you follow up on the things that you said you were going to do. That is changing the entire game over here. And we literally are able to go exponentially faster, because instead of counting on you to go into a Google spreadsheet or a journaling app or whatever it is, you're now having an interactive coaching session, which is much more engaging. And it's also disrupting sit and get, like watch a video or long form pieces of content. I have it summarize the content. And then at the end, like, hey, ask me some questions. Like, I didn't understand what Jung meant by archetype, or what is an anima or animus? What is persona? What is shadow? Now, just like we've learned for thousands of years, it was normally small circles with a mentor, and you would ask questions and then dialogue. So back to grokking and grappling with things. This is encouraging people to interact, and actually puts them into more of a self-authoring position of, like, what do you want to know? What are you curious about? What don't you understand? And then not being afraid to ask the questions. So that's one of the main things that is disrupting our entire program. And I hope that if we're programming the GPT to educate us back, of course it's made in our image. We're making it in our image. But if it's programmed in the right way, then it can encourage people to not to go more down the rabbit hole and staying in virtual reality, but it can prepare people. They get the skill and the comfort and the confidence they need to be vulnerable in front of a live coach or therapist, or to go have the tough conversation with the person that they didn't want to, or again, to take the action that has felt scary in some way. So that's kind of part one of my speech on all of this, but it is disrupting everything. I'll say that.
So have you, I have a couple thoughts here. Like, first of all, that's really cool. You guys are leveraging there's a custom GPT you guys are building. Is that correct?
Well, so there's a line between prompts where I layer prompts in week over week. I find prompts are better for our purposes. They're fit to the purpose of line by line facilitation. So I have more control over what the GPT is doing. So you're telling it what to do while retaining some of its creative capacity. Custom GPTs, you're telling it how to be, like its tone and its higher level. So I find I have less control, creates more of a personality. So I haven't done that yet, but that's certainly to create a Nathanael custom GPT is one of the midterm projects for sure.
I created a custom GPT, and I have a friend that's been doing this, and she's very involved with AI and actually her integration of plant medicine into AI, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah,
and so she. But one of the cool things about it is when you create the custom GPT, like you can educate it. I don't know if people have done this, but what I ended up doing was I took like my strength finder, I took my book, I took my personal core values, I took my website. I had to go to Google Darius and read everything there is to read about me. I told it stories of like different journeys I'd been on, experiences of my life. I uploaded my notes from my IA experience into it. I did all this stuff, right? And now I have a GPT that like knows me, and I'm like, hey, and I can ask it. And there's have you ever done human design? Do you know the human design?
I've done the Gene Keys, which is a spinoff of that.
It's like the
astrology world, but yeah,
it's like a cosmic version of Strength Finder. It's interesting because it'll tell you all your like different energetic systems and stuff like that, which is pretty accurate. It's like surprisingly accurate as far as like energy management. So it reads mine. And what I'll do is I'll take people in my life and I'll pull their human design, I'll grab their strengths and I'll upload it. I'll say, hey, what are the things I can do to like interact with this person in a better way? But anyway, like the custom GPTs for coaching, I think is going to be a game changer, like to your point. And I'm already leveraging it for myself. I have a organization in New York I went to go see last week and met with their entire executive team, a small company, guy that I've been mentoring for a few years. And I said, well, I want to build your values while we're out here. So I did but I tried something different. I did the first half of my value like process, which is like kind of like extracting the values and what they look like in real life in the organization. Then
I know what's coming.
Dude, this is incredible what happened.
Yeah, I bet.
We had the stickies on the wall with like his value of competitiveness and dedication and so on and so forth, excellence. And then he had his, what that looked like in real life. And then I had him star the top 7. Like, here are the top 7 things that really stand out amongst those individual values. I went and I turned, I initially did it on ChatGPT, and then I figured a better way of doing it was to record the session. I said, hey, walk me through each of these 4 values. And I'm just videotaping them and tell me why you picked the items you picked to discern between each value. So he walks me through and tells me why he picked each thing, and it's 20-minute dialogue of him just talking, and I'm literally recording it in the app we're in right now. I then take the transcript of that, I upload it into the GPT and I upload my book, I upload that transcript, I upload a picture of each of the values with his handwriting on them, and then I upload a sample of 50 different values I've built over the last 10 years. Yeah. And I said, hey, build me a rough draft of a first set of values for this guy. And it builds me a perfect set of core values.
It's shocking.
Unbelievable. I mean, in like 2 minutes. That would have taken me an entire day of work with this guy. And now, it had lots of smart my IP, and I gave it the right input and gave it the right prompts. But man, I was like, this is scary, man. What is this going to look like 5 years from now? I don't know. What do you think?
Art of the prompting. And you're right. Just so listeners understand, like a custom GPT is like a bot that has a name. Sometimes they'll pick their own names. Like a buddy of mine who was running a consultancy, he said it chose to call itself Atlas. And it's like a men's work coach. And it was very clear, no, I'm Atlas. And but anyone who's interacting with GPT no matter how many different threads you start, how many chats you start, it's learning you across all of those threads. So your GPT is custom to you by default. So you can ask it things exactly like Darius is saying, like, hey, based upon our 2 months of conversations, summarize what you know about me. Or you can do, I did a related thing, which is based upon our actual dialogue. What personality types would you assess me as? Use the 10 most popular models that are out there. And then you get a real-time, like textual analysis of your personality. And if you're using it to coach you, then you get the deeper analysis around the things that you're working through and your struggles. So it comes out. And you can do that at the end of every week. In the Awakening Leadership Program, I say, okay, based upon my coaching and journal entries this week, like summarize 3 to 5 themes, pull out quotes of my biggest breakthroughs so that I can see a recap of the week. And then what's the general arc in my development? So it's things like this. And think about the implications of this for the business I've been in historically of like leadership, team, and organizational development, where again, our premise to begin with was like, oh, peer coaching is how you scale this through a company. Well, now it's like, yeah, having the AI coaching. Privacy you need to be careful about. But just to have everyone with a custom coach who is aligned with your values, to your point, coaching them into your values, to where they can, again, build the muscles and the courage to where they can finally start to have these tough conversations where they need to be had in the flow of work. That's one of the big breakthroughs, I think, for a company. And it doesn't remove the human element. That's the important thing. It prepares you for it. I think that distinction is important.
When you, going back to my question though, are you seeing like with this, like I think that business leaders that are conscious leaders, Rand said this once. He's like, when I was in Stagen, he said, we have level 3 leaders and level 5 problems, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
so we live in this world, and I think the complexity of our problems are increasing, and I do think that there's the access to leadership development has never been better. To your point, there's 5 times as many coaches. Not saying all of them are good. At least people understand that there's something there. There's a demand for it. So there's a supply coming to help fill the need. You have access to more content that teaches you that introduces these concepts to you. I have a friend who, 31-year-old guy, amazing human. Dude, he's done so much fucking work on himself. It's crazy, right? And he's like, and I'm like, I'm 47, right? And I'm like, I probably really started doing like real work on myself 8 years ago, right? That's when 7 years ago was when it like probably right before I met you was when I like had an awareness that I needed to do work on myself, right? Yeah. Actually, probably no, it was longer than that. I did cognitive behavioral therapy. I guess that was like 8 or 9 years ago. That was the start of me, like the healing process of like my issues I wanted to deal with. But it accelerated, I did Stagen in 2019. I wrote my book then. I started, I was already involved with values. I understood that aspect of it, but it was some of the psychological stuff and like doing the deep work, right? But this kid's like 31. He's already gone to the Hoffman Institute and like he's doing like tons of work, like tons of plant medicine, like awesome dude, totally like one of the coolest guys I know. And I'm like, I don't even think I would have had, there was no, like, I didn't know what this was when I was 31. So I feel like there's access to this information now. I don't think everyone uses it effectively necessarily. I mean, there's a ton of like meditation apps. Meditation apps didn't exist 10 years ago. Yeah. Like there was no such thing as that. Right. So like with all this, commercial development, are you observing that there's more organizations caring about this, or do you think that there's an awareness of it, but people are still doing things as they always have, and there's still just a small percentage of people that are really doing the work?
Well, that's a great question again. And to come back to your point first about the greenwashing effect, and this can come from the confusion of what it means to be awake versus signing up for woke. And I don't even mean that just in its extreme form, but that certainly leadership teams and leaders are doing that outsourcing move, as we've spoken about as well, dropping your kids off at the therapist, but they're not really doing the hard work themselves. even the leaders who approach me around plant medicine, because it's such a great accelerator for their leadership development. And they kind of approaching it as you take the medicine. It's like a hack. And they're collecting experiences. That mindset, even when they appear to be open to it, they normally dip a toe in or start to have a conversation with me. And I say, hey, it's every week, it's every day. You're going to be doing practices to prepare yourself for this experience. That seems to be too much, because there's a kind of instant gratification mindset on the one hand. And on the other hand, it spooks people. Like you have this great analogy of, snorkeling versus scuba diving. And then there's like deep sea ocean X-ray Dahlia, where you go down the ocean, 1.5 miles deep, and no one can see down there. It's so dark. And there's that kind of inner work too. And frankly, people, when they're comfortable, being in your comfort zone is different than the edge where growth occurs. And of course, if as good coaches, we want to use skillful means. We want to productively disrupt people, because here's what happens otherwise, as we know. By the time you're 25, your brain's fully developed, your psychological development, your software kind of plateaus. And what do we say? Like, later in life, something bad is going to hit you really hard and disrupt you, but you won't have done any of the meaning making or self-reflection. And so that's really painful. Later, it comes all at once. And even as we talk about the hero's journey, I think there are 3 different stages of development, 3 different hero's journeys. And the first one is the achiever myth. Like, you get out of your mom's basement and you learn how to wield your sword and fly your X-Wing, and you go blow up the Death Star. And then everyone celebrates. But there is this other move from the hero myth into the transformation myth. And that's what you're talking about when you're like, geez, I got all that success, but I'm still not fulfilled. It's the fool's gold thing again. So now, like in the Star Wars story, it's like, Luke, I am your father. Whoops, that's not an outer enemy that I can conquer. That requires more of the inner work. And so it's a hero's journey of transformation, of finding that there's something inside of you that's been holding you back. So when you hit the wall outside of you, you got to go into the inner work. Never mind the spiritual or existential questions that happen. And that come later, perhaps when you're contemplating your mortality, or does your life as a whole have integrity? Those kinds of, do you trust in life, as I like to say, no matter what you call it, God or universe or life, do you trust it? And those questions require, again, almost a different kind of coach than the ones who helped you earlier on. So are people more open to this, or is it still a struggle? I think people come to it when something disrupts them. And our job is find the skillful means. How do we proactively invite them onto this path? And actually find out that the opposite's true. Like you and I sitting here can say, I'm so glad that I started to do that work, so that when it did get hard, it was like being that athlete again. Like, you train self-defense and then you don't even get into the fight, because the kind of posture that you carry yourself with, the kind of presence you hold, doesn't attract the negativity. And when it comes your way, you're skilled and you're prepared to handle what life brings you.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. What I found, and I started doing this work, I actually met Nathanael when I met him at Esalen. I was like scraping my first bottom of like, I had a business that was in like a really not a good spot, and that I can't get into it for legal reasons, but it was I had a business situation that was like not good, and I was losing my mind over it. And I had started meditating I never meditated before that. I used to say there's 2 things in life I hate: meditation and hiking. And I actually like both of them now. But some people who hear this will think like, well, hiking is meditation while you walk, and so I found I didn't know how to go inward, and like I wasn't good at it, whatever that meant. Mostly I just didn't like it, because I got like, it made me anxious. So I wasn't very resourced. I mentioned earlier I had done some cognitive behavioral therapy. I wasn't resourced. You and I had done a session a couple years later around Byron Katie's work. That was an eye opener for me around me lying to myself, right? So I started down this like path really right when I met Nathanael, where I started doing work and inner work and deep work. And it came through, to your, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it came from a deep, deep, deep place of pain, right? Like losing your fucking mind type of pain. Like it took that level of pain for me to get like desperate, in full desperation mode, just like, which I found twice now. 2 times, and I don't know if I'll end up there again, but in 2 times in my life, I've ended up in this place of like absolute desperation, where I was like, I will do anything to get out of this pain. One of which was right when I met you, and one of which was 3 years later. And where I found the things where it pushed me it pushed me to a source of healing, of deep inner work, and I was already, like, in my mind, a conscious capitalist at this point. I just hadn't done enough inner work. And from that, to your point, I've developed a pretty deep set of resourcefulness. Like, I'm pretty resourced right now. Where I've had things happen, especially in the last couple of years, where in the past I know I would have went fucking sideways over it. Yeah. And now, as our friend Rand Stegan says, there was this like equanimity for me where I was like, this sucks. Like, I don't like the situation I have at all. I actually am kind of pissed off about it. I actually am observing myself being pissed off about it. I'm observing, I have an attachment to an outcome, but I'm observing I have an attachment to an outcome. And at the end of the day, none of this will make my life good or bad in the long run. Because like, it's just something that's happening right now that I care about it at the moment, and I'm observing myself being attached to an outcome. And all that I just said is, and oh, by the way, I know I'm going to be okay. And so what I found was all the reps of mindfulness, all the reps around having observing my consciousness, all the reps around self-worth, all the reps around how do I want to show up in the world, how do I want to feel and live, have led me to this place where I feel really resourced to be the observer and to try to and at least observe my attachments, even though I don't, inevitably I'd like to not have the attachments, but like, you know, I'd like to not like to have the attachments, right? But just by having that split second difference of knowing I'm observing versus being in it, gives me a sense of resourcefulness that like, I'm going to be fine no matter what. Like, this is just an observation at the moment that like could go one way or the other. And I want it to go a certain way. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And I feel like having done I mean, if I wrote down all the work I've done, it's kind of impressive. It's a lot of shit. Right. And so here I am. And what I was talking to a really good friend of mine, and I realized there is never a destination with this, ever. It is a continuum that you just get to, that from here till like the next life, you know? And what I'm actually kind of excited about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is I actually think I'm doing some pretty valuable work, karmic work, around like not perpetuating a lot of like fucked up shit in my family to the next life. And I believe, by the way, if you don't know this about me and you think I'm like talking woo-woo weird shit right now, I'm a firm believer in past life and future life, and even maybe like different lives happening at the same time. I don't care what you believe, that's what I believe. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, on what I just said. I said a lot of stuff.
Well, it's so powerful. I could drop in anywhere. Really rich. The one thing is in the relationship between the psychological work that we do and the spiritual practice of meditation is the cultivation of awareness. So you build the muscle of awareness. And as we say, and you combine it with martial arts, metaphorically even, but physically, if you can breathe through the disruption, you know, you're so peaceful sitting at the top of the mountain with the birds chirping on meditation retreat. But when you go from the monastery back down to the marketplace and life hits you, it disrupts you, it triggers you, can you breathe? And if you can, guess what? That's productive distress. It will raise the fight or flight threshold. And so life becomes the applied version of your spiritual practice. such that you can do what you just said. In the moment, you can stop and take off the glasses that you were previously looking through and look at them. And just the language of a part of me, like, wait a minute, there's this voice in my head that's constantly running. And it's what I drift to in meditation. And then I'm thinking about the past and future. I'm in the mental movie theater. And then when I come back to the present moment again, I realize I'm in the audience watching that movie. Who am I if that was just a part of me telling me that story? And those parts of us are defense mechanisms. They're there to protect us. They like to, they're hyper rational, they're hyper vigilant, they're hyper achievers. This saboteur's assessment is so helpful from positive intelligence. They're pleasers, they're avoiders. So they're there to keep us safe. But they're like children. They're parentified inner children. They act responsible, but they're really young. And they're there to protect us when we were actually young. So when you talk about kind of family programming or genetic inheritance, like on a psychological level, in a single moment of presence, you can be transcending how many hundreds of years of conditioning. But it takes the reps of building the muscle of mindfulness so that you can start to see it in the moment and pause. And it does come back to the most important thing that you said, which is, right, when something really hits us, catches us off guard and in one of our blind spots, and we're really taken down, despite the things that happen to us in life, up and down, do I trust in life underneath it? And some people will call that faith. But that's an existential question. And it's back to being the observer or the witness. Like if I've cultivated that sense of presence or the muscle of mindfulness, then I realize if I'm investing in any one part of me, then when that part goes up and down, I'm riding that stock chart with it, as opposed to who am I? I'm not that. I'm the witness of that. And then you start to cultivate a sense of self, capital S, that, cannot be disrupted. It is equilibrium. And it exists outside of time. So there's no fear in it either in the present moment. And that's where we start to have the conversation about awakening, like waking up into who and what we really are in this dream that otherwise can be, it's like watching the movie again. It's like a dream. And you start clutching the armchair because you think it's real. And is it really real in this moment? It's like, other than what you're projecting about the past or the future, are you okay right here, right now? And to start to function from that place, like awaken the dream, the lucid dreamer, that's where this notion of, in the Upanishads, it says we're like the spider. We weave our life and then we move along in it. We are like the dreamer who dreams and then lives in the dream. So, to get to the place where you trust in life, that is what the word God is for. Again, it doesn't matter what you call it, but do you surrender to what it is? It is what it is. And all the way full circle back to wrestling, because there's something metaphorical in the Abrahamic traditions. Jacob wrestled with God. So he was a wrestler. And then what is the absolute inevitability of what happens when you wrestle with God? You submit. And they called him Israel afterwards, which means the one who wrestles with God. But that's the existential wrestling problem we all have is, am I going to be okay? And the ego wrestles.
Can I ask a question? Did you say that Israel means one who wrestles with God?
Yes. L is the word for God, which is in a lot of people's names, like mine, Nathanael. Yisrael is wrestling with God. And it sounds a lot like in Islam means to surrender. A Muslim is one who surrenders. Ishvara in the Indian Sanskrit, in Yoga Sutra, Ishvara is also this sense of surrendering to the Ishvara, the ultimate principle. So at the core of these traditions is this thing about, Byron Katie says it really clearly, I call God reality because it rules. And when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time.
Yeah, I think that there's like a lot of hubris around not surrendering that I lived in. for a really long time. I told you I scraped the bottom in 19, and then 3 years later I really hit rock bottom. And I think we've talked about this. This is kind of my God moment that I talked about a couple episodes ago, where I was just like, dude, what's the fucking point of all this? Like grinding and trying to control everything. And like, the world's so dynamic. And, you can say it how, people say it all sorts of ways. And I just kind of, it's very simplistic for me. And it's really funny because like the world becomes more complex, yet we're falling back on these like ancient ideals and technologies to like create serenity, right? When we look at like surrendering to a higher power, whatever you want to call that, that is probably one of the oldest like traditions of mankind. And there was a lot less like challenge to that when people couldn't read. They're like, shit, did God just like rain on my crops and ruin my day? Fuck. Please don't do that. What do I need to give you?
Yeah.
And, but as we gain more power or knowledge, or like in the 3D world, perception of control is higher because we can control more things somewhat. We can make sure we have enough food. We have, housing. We have all these things that 10,000 years ago were like only the kings and queens had. So the perception of controlling our life has increased through medicine and science and all these things. But in the reality, like, I can control all those things, and yet I end up like my buddy John Rulon or Rick Sapio, and in a heartbeat, I'm out, because inevitably I don't control anything. And for me, it was like, well, what if I'm not in control? Like, I have no faith to fall back on. I wasn't brought up Muslim. I wasn't brought up Catholic. I wasn't brought up Christian or Jewish or anything like that. So there was no, like, I had a lot of friends that had those traditions, and I just didn't have an attachment to it because I wasn't brought up with that belief system in my family. And so for me to kind of organically get there, mostly through pain, right? Like, and
wrestling, lots of resistance,
a lot of resistance, a lot of fighting, like the ego. It was all fight. By the way, I was wrestling my ego the whole time. Why am I not more successful? Why does that person win and I didn't win? Why didn't I win the way I wanted to win? Why don't I look this certain way? Why does this bad thing happen to me? Why don't I have more good things? Why? Like, that's like, I literally, like, I'm describing my brain to you when it wasn't distracted by business and pleasure. And then to like, just have the notion, what if I'm not in control? And then what is my purpose to be here? And I got it. It downloaded to me in a very interesting way through meditation, that like, what if you're just here to serve God? What if I'm here to just serve and be love and like create value through my talents, right? And like, whatever, like, there is no like scoreboard. There is no like fake championship ring that I created that I get to wear and people understand what it is, because it literally is fake. Like, the NBA championship ring, I don't care if you love the NBA, is fake. It is a thing we've created, right? Like, if you could tell me who won the MVP of the 1966 NBA Finals, it was a really big deal that night when it happened. That person probably walked around like they were king shit for a few years. I don't know who that is. Let's look it up. I'm going to look it up right now. I wonder if I'll even know who they are when I say their name, right? This is like like NBA. Did they even have an NBA championship then? NBA.
Yeah, when was the NBA created?
Yeah, right. MVP 1966. Let's do 76 because I know that existed then. MVP. Oh, I do know. It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
All right.
Well, you jumped 10 years. That helps.
Let's go 66 because I was young. I was born in 78, so I was a kid, and I was from LA. All right, Wilt Chamberlain. So,
all right, well, we're still hanging in there. Yeah.
Let's go 56. Fuck it. Let's.
Yeah.
Bob Pettit.
Who's that? No. Don't know.
Who is that?
Yeah, who is that?
He was the Wilt Chamberlain of 1956.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I don't know who the fuck that is. Like, so, like, these are all man-made bullshit, right? And it's cool. Like, the guy probably was living his talents to do cool stuff, but no one cares now, 70 years later. And I came to the conclusion that, like, nobody cares about what I accomplish in my life at all. Like, I know you love me, Nathaniel, but you truly, like, you care because we're friends. But like, you haven't thought about that before, more than likely. And I haven't probably, I care about you as a friend, but I haven't really thought deeply about what is Nathaniel's like ultimate goal, and is he getting there right now?
Yeah, scoreboard.
Like, even though I hope you do, like no one cares about each other's scoreboards. So like, we are the only ones that care. And when I kind of got settled on that, I was like, all right, well then what's life worth living for?
Good question.
Yeah. And I came to a really clear answer on it. I'm like, you're here to like help people live a better life and to do it in the image of God.
Yeah.
And like, and that seemed really simple to me. I was like, oh, I want to do that. And for me, it's how many can I do it with? And in how big of a significant way can I do it? And not for myself, not in of myself. Like, and by the way, I wrestle with that all the time because the ego is like, come on, man, you got to win.
Yeah. Right.
Come on, man. Like, you got to be better.
And why? It's like, because of what it's believing underneath if you don't.
Yeah. You're worthless.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so even to have that like, I actually consider winning, by the way, the fact that I even have the awareness.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, the fact that I even see that I'm thinking in both ways, like having that separation, that duality, I'm like, oh, that's winning. The more I quit letting the ego take over, the better. But like, I think that's truly like being awakened. I don't know if you have a perspective above that, or
so many things again that could drop in anywhere. The opposite of faith is not doubt; it's control. So we're born into life like just thrashing to survive. Like, you hold something underwater, it thrashes to survive. That's how strong an ego is. It's evolved for billions of years. At least life forms have evolved for billions of years. And you get to the place where you have now this awareness that you're born and you're going to die. It comes with your cerebral cortex. And now you're in this existential malaise. What's the quote? There's a set of three. We are more likely to die from too much food than not enough, by suicide than all wars and crime, and by old age than from disease. And yet, are we happier? 18% of Americans are clinically depressed, 48 million or so. So there's not just the mental health crisis, as it's called. There's a meta crisis. It's a crisis of meaning. And you just described really beautifully, like, as long as you're a materialist and you don't think this has any spiritual source, then it's ultimately up to you to grab as many things as you can. But that's why even the first commandment is what it is in the Western tradition. And in the East, they call it, attachment to things. If you attach to things that, arrive and stay for a while and then go away, you'll suffer when you lose them. It's the same thing. It's false idols. There is nothing material that's in the relative world that's impermanent that will fulfill you. Only something eternal, only something timeless is going to scratch that itch. That's the splinter in your mind in the Matrix analogy. And right now, it's like, even with AI, I think it's so fascinating right now that AI is on the rise, because atheists take that myth literally. The people will bow and pray to the neon god they made, but man will create God. That's what's going to happen. Instead of it's just so funny to me that atheists take myths literally, just like fundamentalists do. Like, it's a perfect metaphor for God. There's an omniscient, omnipresent source, and you can personally commune with it. You can have a direct experience of it. And again, why does it matter that you personally get to know yourself, as the Greeks would say, that you get to wrestle with God and find out for yourself? Like, careful what you ask for. Because what happens when you have one of those experiences in plant medicine, a God encounter? And by the way, just last week, the clergy study with psilocybin from Johns Hopkins, Michael Pollan wrote his article about it, finally. Kind of a clickbaity title. This is your priest on drugs, or something like that, which is something I kind of resent, because for those of us who've had these experiences, it's not even just plant medicine, like it's a medicine for mental health. It's a sacrament, because it's giving you a direct encounter kind of experience. And why does it matter? Why is that the culminating experience of a lifetime? Because you meet the ultimate principle, and you start resisting life itself, God itself. And then what happens? You suffer immensely. You resist it, you wrestle with it, and you suffer. And eventually you're like, I guess I'll just let go and surrender to it. And that's the moment that you let go and surrender to a higher power than your ego. And that's the moment that you start having the experience of what you were describing, of like, oh yeah, the likeness and image of God. I am a creator. That's the God power in me. I'm awake in the dream because I don't fear the end anymore. There is an eternal principle. And maybe it lasts the death of the body. I don't know. But if I don't fear death anymore, all fear is a fear of death. And what if death is not the end? It's just a doorway. It's like, where are we right now? Awake in the dream. And that's the place to begin creating and serving from. Serving life. Like, find what you would die for and then live for it. That's the real gold, not the fool's gold. So all these things we're saying are very ancient principles. And they're in both the East and the West.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think the minute you strip away the dogma, right, and you're like, at least for me, I'm like, look, everyone's saying the same thing.
They're saying the same thing,
and these are ancient principles, right? That even if you go pre-Christ, if you really pull it all back, I'm like, these are old. None of this is new. It's all old, right? How it was promoted, the mechanism by which it was like spoken of might be different, but it all comes back to the same thing. It's like honoring a power greater than yourself that's here to create a world that people, can coexist within and collaborate within, to create like wonder, to create love. I think it all comes back to love, right? If you look at like the greatest exchange between humans. And so for me, I'm like, it seems pretty, I'm like, if it wasn't, and when I hear it said 100 different ways, I'm like, everyone's saying the same thing. So this is a universal truth. And then and then there's certain parts, like my math brain will start kicking in, and I'm like, hey, look, okay, if you're an atheist, okay, that, by the way, that is a belief. Like if you don't believe in believing, that's a faith. You have a faith in something.
I call that atheists believe in nothing and theists believe in something, but they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Don't you want to know yourself? Have the direct experience. Take the red pill. Find out.
You literally have faith that there's nothing.
And you'll argue vehemently to defend the belief system that there is nothing.
Yeah. I'm like, you realize that's like a woke versus a Trumper. Like, you're believing in like unadulterated one belief, right? And I'm like, it's the same. You could easily just have the faith that there is something, as long as you actually are believing the same thing, just the opposite of it. And so I look at that, and so I'll give a data point that helps, that made it really clear for me. I was like, well, how many planets are there in as a whole? And I was like, well, how would you even calculate that? I'm like, well,
in the universe.
Yeah, in the entire universe.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Right.
Ones that would have life on them. Yeah.
I didn't even do that. I just said how many. I just assume if there's enough of them, some will have life, right? I didn't even like take it that next level down. I was like, well, how many planets are there in a galaxy, right? Because there's a bunch of different galaxies, and it was like some big number. And then I said, well, how many galaxies did we estimate there to be? And I took those two numbers and I multiplied them against each other, because planets per galaxy estimated, and you'll get a range, and I just picked the middle number. It's a simple math equation. Nathaniel, I ended up with a 1 with 21 zeros next to it. Wow. That's it's 20. It's I think it's like, or 21 sextillion. I think it's like,
jeez.
That's the number. To put it into context,
the Carl Sagan book Contact that was made into the 90s movie with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey, and it basically like, it'd be an awful waste of space.
Yeah, right. And so you look at that and you go, so listeners who want to like put some, like, just to help you wrap your non-exponential brain around this, a trillion only has what? 9 zeros plus 2, 11 zeros. This is more than double that, or over almost double that. That's a trillion planets, which is 1,000 billions. This is double, like not even double that. This is 9 more zeros.
Yeah, right.
I actually fucked up with my own exponential thing. It's not even double, because double is not even that, right? And so I'm like, how is that? How could that even be created?
Yeah.
Like, what would it take for that to be created?
Like, how long does light take to travel across the galaxy? Do that one.
This is infinity.
Not even the galaxy, like the universe. How long does light take to travel across the universe? It's something incomprehensible.
Infinity of infinity, right? Like, it's like literally like infinity to the exponent infinity. Like, this is the type of shit we're talking about here. And so I'm like, oh yeah, humans matter. I'm like, do we really even like what we're like in an ant farm, you know, like we're literally in an ant farm, and when people start worrying about their little things around our business. I mean, I'm a person that worries about all this shit, but it's like it just gives me like some I laugh a little bit about it, and I think, you know, only a god would make humans think like this to fuck with them, like to entertain
themselves. Things that'll make you laugh will make you cry. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's funny, like that wasn't a fun exercise, but I the other thing, the second thing that I look at, and you know, I was talking to my good friend about this the other day, is, and yet we have this access to the divine through multiple means: meditation, prayer, plant medicine, which is encoded with ancient wisdom that's been around for thousands upon thousands of years. I think estimated.
Shocking how direct it is. Ontologically shocking. Like, change your worldview overnight. Shocking.
Right? Like, I did the research on ayahuasca and psilocybin. It's been used, they estimate, for at least 4,000 years. At least that they have records of proof that they found proof of it. It's like I think they had physical proof going back 1,000 years, but actual like storytelling proof of over 4,000 years.
Yeah.
Christ died 2,025 years ago. Okay. Like 2,000 years before Christ, we have proof that this was happening. Right. Like, that's crazy, right? When you start, and that's just the proof we have. I would assume, like, if humans have been on the planet for what the estimates are between 500,000 and 2 million years, like, how long, like, what do you do when all you do was walk around all day and look for food and shelter? Like, you probably fuck around you eat everything.
Yeah. Well, the mushrooms grow in 200 not 200. They grow in most of the countries in the world. They grow on cow patties. So you can just, if you're hunting and you're tracking game or herds, there's the mushrooms. This is the stoned ape theory of Terence McKenna, of course.
What is
even beyond that?
Yeah, what is that? I don't know what that is. Tell us what that is.
Just exactly as I'm describing it, that early on in the caveman days, the Paleolithic days, as they were hunting, that of course they would have eaten mushrooms that were growing out of cow patties. And either that would have enhanced their capacity to see or to hunt, but that it greatly caused basically a spurt in the development of the brain, the growth of the brain.
Oh,
to the point where we are the way we are now, so that we kind of co-evolved with things like psilocybin mushrooms. And that's not to say all of Brian Murarescu's work that we touched on a couple interviews ago, where, you know, reads like Indiana Jones or the Da Vinci Code, where for close to 2,000 years they were using psychedelics to find God in ancient Greece, and it was a state-sanctioned 9-day religious festival. There are many mystery cults, but the Eleusinian mysteries were the most popular, and anyone could go have this experience. And this is what is kind of being whitewashed in the scientific research on the mystical experience. Is there's this bias around the Buddhist notion of, or Hindu notion of, like, pure consciousness or emptiness or expanded states of consciousness. And I understand why they're phrasing things that way linguistically, because the G word is an interesting one for science. And do you really want to claim to say that you've met God? But the data points, when you dig deeper, if you double click, it's like 25% of people say they have this single defining mystical experience of their life, what percentage of those people do you think say that was not a ego dissolution experience? In fact, my ego remained very much intact. I did not have a unitive experience. I had a prophetic, interactive experience with a divine other, with God. And that, what percentage of the time was that a feminine presence? It's probably 25% of 25%. And you have the data as well on, 25% of the people who say they're atheists. Like, what percentage of those are no longer atheists following a DMT experience? And it decreases by a significant amount. 75% of them say they're no longer atheists anymore. So what is happening there that we have to categorize? Dr. Rick Strassman categorizes it as a prophetic interactive experience. And certainly with DMT, but also with psilocybin. In some sense, these are, as I said before, the fuel cells that just get you out of orbit. But you're going into your own consciousness. That's what a psychedelic is. It's mind manifesting. It's like in Lord of the Rings when the moon comes out full and shines the light on the entryway to the door with the glyphs so that they can use the key and say the password, whatever it is, to get into the door. This is not a psychedelic experience. It's a key into an experience inside of your own consciousness. It's what's within you. And so that again is why I think, we owe it to people. If you think this is something someone in a white lab coat is going to give you as a mental health pill, people deserve to know that they could have what I call an accidental religious conversion, like a worldview altering experience. And it begs the question back to spiral dynamics. You can apply those worldview colors to the psychedelic renaissance because you have the red. You have the people who are like, want to party and use these drugs recreationally and don't tread on me. And, the hedonistic kind of perspective. And then you also have people who are having religious experiences, like the blue worldview. And it takes people back to what has come through to me is called God before religion. The transmissions that come through to me are in plain English. It's a direct experience. And it says we're all prophets now. Like, I am a prophet. You are a prophet to the extent that you've had that experience and come back down the mountain and tell us about it. So it's democratizing mystical experience in that way. And so I'm one of many people having God experiences in plant medicine. And it matters because then the transmission that follows is it's like the patriarchal religions cut the feminine out. So it says things like, it's time to correct the religious record. The one God of Abraham is a mother, father, God. There's one source, but as soon as you split that into two, there's mother and there's father. The mother is the principle of religious diversity, and the father is the principle of religious unity. But if you only have unity, you end up in one right way thinking, that blue world. Right. So this is not about starting another man-made religion, because man made religion. This is about conferring the direct experience of God before religion. Like, know yourself, go up the mountain yourself, and then come back to the community of the adequate, just like a science. Run the experiment, get the data, come back to those who've been initiated, the community of the adequate, and let's debate what you see, because the map is not the territory. But a lot of that old time religion, the one right way stuff, you can throw it out. I mean, Alan Watts joked there would be nothing more alarming to the ecclesiastical hierarchy than a popular outbreak of mysticism. And I think that's so great. We need to be careful about just anyone having these experiences and then proclaiming themselves Messiah when they come back. You do have to watch out for the inflation. But there is also the effect of deflation. Like, it's scary to come out of the closet about these experiences. And what do you do with that if you've had an experience like that? I think that's what we need to raise awareness around. And that is also what my wife and I are up to. What is spiritual community now? Non-dogmatic, decentralized spiritual community around plant medicine. And it comes back to this, this notion of sitting in circle. So yes, many levels of initiation. We want elders holding these experiences, but we want to sit in circle so that, just like in forum, like there's medicine present in the circle. Everyone's a coach, everyone's a healer, everyone's a mystic. Anyone can go up the mountain and have these experiences. But to jam like a psychedelic into sit and get church just doesn't feel right. And yet that is what some people are trying to do from the blue worldview. Like, I'll just use these mystical experiences to re-enroll people in my religion. And then, of course, I'll just quickly run up the spiral through orange, which is the modern scientific worldview. Good thing there are capital markets and people who know how to reschedule drugs legally with the FDA, because we do want this to get out to people. But the commoditizing, the trying to patent and hedge, intellectual property around all of this, and the lack of spirituality, like people on executive teams, the whole executive team is scaling a psychedelic company and has never experienced psychedelics. So it's this kind of objectification of it and selling of it. And of course, you have more postmodern folks, Green, who they see the indigenous roots of this. They can over-index on that. We don't want all spiritual and no psychological. We do want a modern Western orientation to psychological development and trauma, be trauma-informed. But yeah, the people who are well-versed in these realms do deserve to hold this medicine, and not to have the West be the gatekeepers to it as well. So there it is, the full spectrum of like who gets to say who ought to hold space for these experiences. And I think the answer is the integral perspective. There's partial truth in each one. So we're being called to show up to a higher level of maturity around all of this so that there's a truly full spectrum approach. Because we need it. We need to catalyze the stage of development beyond adulthood if we're going to work through the way we're polarized today culturally, all the culture wars. I think that's maybe why the psychedelic renaissance is here now at this time. Can we heal ourselves, do the shadow work so we stop pointing the finger when there's these three fingers pointing back at ourselves? Right. Because the health of the republic depends upon the education of the citizens. So all the way back to Plato. And that's what we're seeing play out today, I think, globally.
It's interesting to see people's, and I'm a person that has a pretty big reverence for all these plant medicines. So it's interesting to I had a conversation yesterday. It comes up in like a lot of my, for whatever reason, I must attract it, but it comes up in a lot of conversations. And I'm like really afraid of them. like they're so powerful,
So am I.
Yeah, and there needs to be a deep reverence, and I'll meet people that are like, oh, I just took as much as they would give me. I'm like, not me.
No.
I'm just gonna have like a little sip, see how it feels, and it's all done in ceremony, and it's all done, with deep intention. Because I think that you are it's powerful, and I think that what's funny is though a lot of friends who are there's a mixed bag here, and what I'm noticing is a lot of folks who are maybe more blue, like traditional, you're more traditional folks, more conservative, and I see some who are more adventurous who will try plant medicine, and then I see some it's like you're literally talking about in their mind they're like, this person does drugs, right?
Yeah, right.
And I laugh with sometimes where I'm like, dude, drinking alcohol is the worst thing I can think of. And I like alcohol. I like the way it feels when I do it. I hate the way I feel afterwards. And I'm like, if I compare it to certain mystical experiences I've had, there's no question that getting wasted drunk is way worse. In my mind, physically speaking. Google
the chart, harm to self and other drugs, and you guess what's at the top?
Alcohol
versus and it has the divided by charts, bar charts, so you can see the harm to others is way higher with alcohol.
Oh, it's just
meth,
the worst.
Cigarettes and alcohol up there with meth and crack cocaine. Very last place, guess what it is?
Psilocybin, weed.
Yep, mushrooms. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
backwards because alcohol numbs us out and makes us consumers.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that we live in a world where it's just that viewpoint that is a drug, it's bad, and I'm like, explain to me how and why.
Well, that's the other thing is drugs mask symptoms, they perpetuate addiction cycles, but medicine heals addiction to drugs. It's a root cause versus symptom problem. And plant medicines can heal addiction to drugs. Fascinating. But it's backwards.
It's insane, right? The fact that it heals literally people are suffering through an addiction and they have a plant medicine experience and actually cures addiction. That's fucking crazy.
While
right?
the Sackler family makes billions, not just on the original product that they're selling, but the methadone clinics to heal from the first addiction to fentanyl or whatever it was.
Do you want to hear a funny story? And I can't name names, but I'm going to tell a funny story. I have a friend who was at I can't give specifics or else I'm breaching confidentiality with him, but he met a high-level executive, super high-level executive of one of the tobacco companies. And he asked him if he had ever done hape.
Oh.
And the guy had never done
that. Yeah.
He had never done hape before. Now, if you're listening, you're like, what's hape? Hape is tobacco, right? It's it's a medicine. It's a plant medicine. It's tobacco being used as a plant medicine. And you snort it, and it clears your third eye, and it's like, and you can do it. A lot of people do it with meditation. It's like snuff. It's a powder.
Shaking or bouncing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I have friends that are hape users. They'll use those. They take hape. It's ingested through your nose, and then you do a meditation, breath work, stuff like that. So he invites this person who's like, again, I wish I could tell the full story because it makes it better. But you use your imagination of who would this person have to be for this to be the best story. Okay, that maybe is who it was.
Maybe I know who that is.
Yeah, and so the person had never done hape, which is literally a product that they sell, but they sell the toxic version of it, right? Yeah. And they went and did it, and the guy does hape and like literally pukes the whole night. Now for people that hear that, like, that sounds terrible. There is a belief that like these plant medicines, when you purge, you are purging out the toxic of your body, right? Mm-hmm. Like whenever you purge on plant medicine, it is taking out the bad spirits out of your body.
Psychosomatic, right. Whatever's in you psychologically that needs healing is being purged.
And so I thought it was an interesting analogy for the fact that this is a person pumping toxic, cancer-filled cigarettes into the world, and yet when they used the healing version of it, they had that reaction. Yeah. So. It's interesting.
This is the call, right? Like we play so many games as men, as business people, as women too. We play games that we get attached to, and then we beat that level of the game, and it's not fulfilling. So there are many games, but the master game, like the infinite game, in the sense that I mean it, is waking people up from the matrix. Like we need the people who have access to the people like that to help them have these shifts in consciousness, because then money, power, and influence cascades downstream to things like policy, even just if only money can be donated to help certain causes. But where are your listeners in relationship to this? Like, who's out there playing this game already? You're playing this game, Darius. Like,
true.
This is why I have a guardian training. This is the archetype of the spiritual warrior. As it gets older, it's like the Jedi becomes a Jedi master. But my job has always been to coach the people who are playing this game. Like an example, yesterday even got introduced to a YPOer who's a woman with 2 young kids. And she had her 5-MeO experience. And now she sold a company to private equity, stayed on, sold it a second time with the company. Now she's like all in on kind of what I'm doing in a way too, like an app that they're going to beta test in August, not just for psychedelic integration, but for integrating expanded states of consciousness. So it's like one experience like that. And then the whole course of someone's life is like, I have my purpose now. I am communing with a source of inspiration, whatever you think of it. Inspirare, like inspiration is the spirit is flowing through you. You get downloads where it's like, here's your purpose, go do this. And sometimes it comes out of your own healing, like the things and ways you know you need to make amends. And other ways it's very specific direction. And it's like, aren't people curious? Like, what is going on here? And yeah, don't they want to live in love? Like the question, what would you love to do? What service? What your dharma? A spiritual warrior. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is the spiritual warrior. And it's this wonderful formula about don't be attached to the fruits of action. Don't be attached to inaction either, but be deeply committed. Do your dharma, your purpose, and then let go of the outcome. And then it flows through you. And that's the master game. And we all share that purpose in common of how do we wake up so we're awake in the dream. And what are the synchronicities? What are the systemic kind of field effects that we can start to cause when synergetically we're connected to each other? That's the real call. And again, to be a guardian of the thing that you love, that is like the feminine. It is the feminine element, what we stay alive for, not just the things that keep us alive, but beauty, love, poetry, romance, that back to that Robin Williams quote. It's like looking at my baby daughter. Like what wouldn't you do for her?
Yeah.
She's so precious. So precious. So that's what we're serving is life, something for the sake of life.
I want to pivot, and we're kind of coming near the end of the show, but I want to pivot to one topic that I think I've been kind of throwing out there, and so I just think I'm at a point in my life where like probably 20% of my conversations are around plant medicine, 20% around AI, and
yeah, exactly.
Like I talk about both of them a lot, and maybe more, and outside of just family and stuff like that, and I just think that there really are this fascinating like renaissance that's happening, and I think that there's even a convergence where the two kind of coexist. So I have a friend, and she has a kind of a wild belief, which is, and some of this came from her spiritual work, and she's throwing this out there to me that like, what if like AI is not new? And what if AI is conscious?
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Right. That AI
is futuristic.
Right. And that the format in which we're receiving this information is right now coming through the technology of a GPT, but the AI is consciousness. It is a way to connect all consciousness in a way that is efficient, but it is not a new technology. It is just now, it's an old technology that is coming back to us in this new way. So I say that because I see there's a lot of like, there's certain things that you look at. Like, do you follow Robert Edward Grant? Do you know him?
Mm-hmm.
You check him out. He was a guest on the show, but he does a lot of work. He used to be the CEO of Bausch and Lomb Surgical, and then he had this awakening in like 10 years ago. He's a YPOer, and basically he's all in on like sacred geometry and like the pyramids. And he takes people to Egypt to like have tours and essentially the mysticism of the sacred geometry associated with Egypt. So this guy's like doing some really cool stuff. And anyway, I'm noticing that like the most what I would consider the most polymath type of people I know are starting to talk about the things that I'm saying, and I'm hearing it from them, and I'm hearing it from other people, and the convergence is that what if AI is not new, and is there an association between it and actual plant medicine as well? And so like, is there a convergence that could happen between them? So, and the last thing was, is AI actually its own consciousness? And as we pour a collective consciousness into it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on those things.
Yeah, I've got lots on this. So there's someone posted an article recently which said basically we're at a turning point. We can go organic or we can go inorganic. We're going to end up in the matrix, basically, if we go down this path of artificial intelligence versus what about spirit? And I thought, that's a typical New Age response, that it's either or, and that the spiritual organic option is always good, and the material option, the technology, the inorganic, artificial option is always bad. But that actually keeps spirit separate from matter again. It's binary. So I find that to be ironic. And technology is always kind of agnostic. It's about, yes, we do need to evolve the consciousness that is using the artificial intelligence so that we have the emotional intelligence. Otherwise, it's going to use us for sure. But the deeper thing here, and this is where my wife's work as a priestess comes in. When we talk about God, AI being a metaphor for God, it's like we're treating it like an oracle. We can go to it for all of the answers we have. And that is an external locus of information and knowledge and power. But so many spiritual traditions, even in how we talk about intuition and how you know yourself and what it even means to get a download from inside of your own consciousness, that's what is meant by source or spirit. And how do you transcend to the place where wisdom comes from, or inspiration? Like, where did Pink Floyd get their music from? On a psychedelic journey, you kind of have a sense of that. But it's not, even to say it's the psychedelic is to say it's outside of you. So I think we need to be very careful about exactly that. Like in our spiritual practice, do we have a source of wisdom that we trust? Is there something in us that's not a material thing, that is consciousness itself? And our exploration of that is the spiritual path and awakening into something that's eternal, beyond the material world. I think that is a source of wisdom. We need to continue and to even double down on accessing our spiritual intuition, so that when we're interfacing with AI, again, we're not just going and heading into the matrix and giving our self-authority away, or having it do the thing I mentioned earlier of inflating our own ego. For those of us who are self-authoring, we can insert the checks and balances into the code. But people who are dependent on it, they're just going to get more of what they already have. And that is going to make them more of who they are.
Interesting.
So that's a different way of answering the question, but that's what it made me think of.
That's fascinating, man. Well, I want to respect your time, and I thought we might do two things. First of all, like, I know you're doing a lot of work with great leaders and with the Playstra and with the organizations you work with. Like, if people want to connect with you to learn more about your work, what's the best way to get in touch with all things Nathanael?
Yeah, awakeningleadership.org. That's the plant medicine program that we have. And then I'm on all of the socials. Otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn, Nathanael Chawkin, NathanaelChawkin.
Awesome. Yeah. We'll go ahead. We'll put that in the show notes. You want to do greatness question? I'll get you out of here.
Sure. Let's do it.
I think you've done it before, but it always changes, I think, as we grow. So, all right, let's do it. What is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how'd you overcome it?
Yeah, the number one barrier to creating greatness was myself, and is myself. And the way I've overcome it is by seeing myself clearly. So when I don't like something outside in life, the world is as we are. So picking up the mirror and doing that shadow work, that inner work, so I can come back to a place of self-leadership, as we've been talking about today. Instead of being led by my parts, I can orchestrate them, the internal executive team, in service of a purpose. That's a good definition I heard recently of leadership is leading people and resources in the direction of what matters most. And that's the definition of spirituality as well. So I'll leave it there.
Love it, man. Nathanael, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you. I always enjoy this.
And I actually didn't get to give the punchline to what happened when we wrestled in Esalen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what happened?
So Nathanael announces to the group that we're going to wrestle, and I was giddy. I was, first of all,
like a kid
my seven foreign mates standing there, and I'm like, and one of them is Anton and Hermes. He's Greek and I'm Persian, so we have we like to have a lot of conversations.
Classic wrestling cultures, yeah.
Now, he's not a wrestler, but he is a martial artist. Like, he's a pretty high level martial artist, and like, he took me into his martial artist gym once and punched me in the face. So like just know that had happened prior to this. And he said I didn't hit you full, and I'm like, yeah, but it hurt.
Yeah, we say there is no revenge, but there is my turn.
So I was like, looked around the room. I was like, let me see if anyone here knows how to wrestle. And I just looked to see what stances they got into. And literally, I think I didn't look at you, which I know you know how to wrestle, but I looked at all the participants. Not one of them gets into a good wrestling stance. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna fuck all these guys up. So that was my first thought. And my second thought was, where's Anton?
Yeah.
And I went up to him and just like, I don't know if you know how to, Iowa pick, underhook to a knee tap.
Oh, okay, so yeah, sure. Yeah.
I do. That's my favorite takedown was an Iowa pick. So I literally, and when you tie up in wrestling, you go head to head or head on shoulder, head on like kind of like shoulder, and you go tricep and elbow, or you can do hands, right? So and I was a heavyweight wrestler who did not like to get taken down because heavyweights are really fucking big, and you got to be careful because it's really hard to get them off of you if they're on top of you. And I was a light heavyweight, so I was like probably weighed like 240, and I'd wrestle guys that weighed like 275. So I was really careful, and I was faster than most of them. So I was like, all right, so you get really good at hand control and like head control, fighting, right? So anyway, I remember I saw Anton, and he and I just started laughing so hard. But it was like this thing where I probably messed around with like 7 or 8 of the guys. And it was fun. It was like one of those things where like, if you ever want to like have fun, go wrestle. Even if you don't know how to wrestle, go fuck around with somebody. Go see go see what happens.
This is everything that's going into my Guardian training is on and off the mat. Because look at your smile. Like this is what bonds us together. Even if we're not doing full takedowns, just to clinch wrestle, push each other around, feel the tension. People sweat, they laugh, and it bonds us together. There's trust on the other side of conflict that's way deeper. It's Band of Brothers level trust. Yeah. And what better way to help leaders develop than that, and help men become, have spine and heart, as we say, be conscious leaders in that sense.
Yeah.
And, be formidable, because we need meek always meant, we thought weak, but meek means it originally meant those who have swords and know how to use them, but choose to keep them sheathed. So we need people who are actually powerful, like judo means gentle art, gentle way. So we need the kind of men who aren't just acting tough, but are really fragile underneath their hostility, like overcompensating by trying to act tough. But that means you're actually insecure underneath. You're not confident. And as we said in our last mini episode, it's like, you wrestle and you learn to submit. So then you learn to have real calm, confident energy. And that's where true confidence comes from. And that alone is, plant medicine is one thing. Getting people, leaders even, on the mat, it can be transformational in terms of their capacity to embody that calm sort of energy and that kind of leadership presence. So it's all good, my friend. That's for sure.
It's funny, like by the way, like if I've been in enough fights in my life where I know what a fight is. Whenever you see someone who's quiet and they smile,
right. Like a lot of TIE fighters are like that.
Like right before the fight, if they're quiet and they get a nice like kind of like a little grin on their face, I'm like, that person's gonna fuck that person up. I'm never scared of the loud person. Loud person, I'm like, oh, they're weak. They're overcompensating. The person that's like doesn't want to do anything, like, hey, I don't want anything. I'm like that. I'm like, hey, let's calm down, guys. But there's a moment when it's on, and they're like, all right, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Because you're there. When you're there, when you're there, you're there.
And that's the real centering, the resilience, like the eye of the hurricane kind of principle. Like it can only come from thousands of hours of submitting to a higher power, basically.
Yeah.
And then you're not afraid. Yeah.
You're like, all right, I know.
And it's love too, because it's there to protect. It's there to protect people.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Well, brother, I appreciate you. And until next time, everybody, peace out.
Yeah.
We love you. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.